admitted it went badly.
All right. Yes. Well, haircuts during COVID are like a whole thing.
Well, I got in-home service. My partner, she does great with the clippers.
Oh, that's nice. That's yes. All right. We do not all have that same benefit. Okay, good. All right. I see that it is 7:01, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Let me just want the participants here. Okay. All right. Sean Mulholland, I see that you're here. Is that right?
Yes, and I have Bernie with me as well. Oh, we just lost Councilor Hill. Perhaps it was something I said.
I'm here. I'm here.
I thought it was something that I said that made you leave. I just said, yeah, I'm here with Bernie, but.
I'm going to blame it on Comcast, okay? So.
We're talking
right. Okay, this is Karen Leo Hill. Let's go ahead and call our meeting of the Fair and Impartial Policing Task Force / Welcoming Lebanon Ordinance to order. And I will ask the city manager to go ahead and make the announcements.
This meeting is being conducted in accordance with the provisions of RSA 91A, an emergency order number 12 issued by the governor of the state of New Hampshire due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting is being conducted virtually by Microsoft Teams or by phone. It's not practical for the task force to meet in person due to potential spread of the virus or to allow the public to meet in person with the committee for the same reasons. Therefore, it's being conducted virtually. If you are participating by phone and you wish to speak when you're recognized by the chairperson, please dial *6 and you'll be allowed to speak at that particular time. If you're just joining regularly by computer, you don't have to do anything special other than unmute yourself. We would ask that you stay muted until that time that you are recognized and allowed to speak. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And I think you said that we're being recorded, but I'm just going to remind everyone that we are being recorded. And let's go ahead and have a roll call for the members of the task force. And so let's see. Kathy Beckett. You have to unmute yourself, Kathy.
I tried, but it didn't work.
All right. Go ahead.
Here.
Kathy Beckett.
Here.
Thank you. Devin Wilkie.
Here.
Diane Root.
Here.
Casey Montas.
Here.
Barry Schuster.
I'm here.
Karen Leo Hill is here as well. Sue Prentice cannot be with us this evening. She is not here, and does that cover all of us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That does cover all of us. So Sue is at another event, unfortunately, that required her attendance. So she will Zoom in if she can. And I use Zoom in the sense of the word that is not, you know what I mean.
You know what you mean, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. So our first order of business is actually addressing minutes, which I thank everyone for your patience. And so I'd like to go ahead and we can do them one at a time. And if anyone has changes, that's absolutely fine. So it's probably helpful. Why don't we take up the first set of minutes, which was from June. So are there any changes to the minutes for the minutes of it was June 23rd? Yes, Kathy.
Just the way my name is spelled.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So when I use Kathy, it's with a Y, but you can use Kathleen.
Would you prefer Kathleen? That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and use Kathleen. So we'll make that change. So one change is Kathy to Kathleen, and we can carry that through all of the minutes.
Okay.
All right, any other changes to the minutes of June? I'm trying to pull this up so that I can share my screen. And I am not having luck. All right, are there any other changes to the minutes? Seeing and hearing none.
Um,
Go ahead, Kathy.
Is that just, are you talking just about the June minutes?
Just about June, yes, just about the June minutes. I think it's best if we just do them one at a time.
Okay,
So that way it will be clear. I can make changes. So these would be just for the June 23rd meeting. Is that right? So just the spelling of, we'll change Kathy to Kathleen in all of the minutes. Anything else? All right. Is there someone who would be willing to make a motion to accept the minutes for June 23rd, 2020 with the correction of Kathy's name to Kathleen?
So moved.
Thank you, Barry. Is there a second?
I'll second Wilkie.
Seconded by Wilkie. Thank you very much. And I'll just use, I guess I'll use last names. And then let's have a roll call vote on this then. All right, Barry Schuster,
Yes.
Devin Wilkie,
Yes.
Casey Montas,
Yes.
Diane Root,
Yes.
Kathleen Beckett,
yes.
Karen Leo Hill votes yes, and Sue is not here. Let's go ahead and move on then to the minutes of July 7th. And I'm just going to try and share my screen so that we can share the agenda for anyone who is watching. That did not work the way I wanted. Am I sharing the screen?
Yes.
What screen am I sharing? Am I sharing this?
It had been the agenda when it was up.
All right, the agenda. Am I sharing the agenda?
Not at the moment.
I'm going to stop sharing what I'm sharing because you just... Yes, this one is what I want to share. All right, am I now sharing the agenda for tonight?
Yes.
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 Okay, great. That's what I was hoping to do. So now we're going to move on to the minutes of July 7, 2020. Is there anyone, I know we're going to make the change from Kathy Beckett to Kathleen. All right, and Devin, I see your hand raised.
Yes, another name change. In for public testimony, the fourth entry, Sarah Rate. Rate begins with a W.
Oh, thank you. Okay. I actually noticed that when I saw her join the meeting tonight, and I thought, oh, I need to correct that. All right, we'll correct the spelling of Sarah Rate's name. Any other changes to the minutes of July 7th? No? All right, great. So we're going to make a name change to Sarah Rate and also to Kathy Beckett. So she will be Kathleen Beckett in all the minutes. Is there someone who would be willing to make a motion to accept the minutes as changed?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. And is there a second?
Seconded by Wilkie.
All right, seconded by Wilkie. And let's do a roll call vote. Barry Schuster,
Yes.
Devin Wilkie,
Yes.
Casey Montas,
Yes.
Diane Root,
Yes.
Kathy Beckett,
Yes.
Karen Leo Hill votes yes as well. All right, thank you. We are making quick moves here. And then we have one more set of minutes because the August 4th ones are still are not quite ready. So July 21st, we're now going to address the minutes of July 21st. We're going to make the changes that so Kathy Beckett's name to Kathleen, and then I see Casey Montas. Yes.
Yes. My name, it has an extra E there. It should be Keysi. It's okay.
I'm not good at spelling anyone's name right, I guess. I'm really sorry. Okay, I apologize. Thank you. I'll correct that for sure. Anything else? Devin.
While we're on the subject of names, Diane has an extra N at the beginning, and just for consistency's sake, under adjournment, It should probably be Root seconded rather than Diane seconded.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I will address that for sure. So, all right, name changes. Names are not my strong suit, apparently. That's okay. Hopefully none of you are offended by my misspellings of your names. I apologize. Okay, anything else other than that? All right, so we have the name change for Kathy Beckett, for Casey Montas, and for Diane Root. Is there someone who'd be willing to make a motion to accept the minutes of July 21st as amended?
So moved by Wilkie.
All right, moved by Wilkie, and we'll say seconded by Montas. And let's have a roll call vote. Barry Schuster,
Barry, yes.
Devin Wilkie,
Yes.
Casey Montas,
Yes.
Diane Root,
Yes.
Kathy Beckett,
Yes.
Karen Leo Hill votes yes as well. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate your patience and understanding that I spell all of your names inconsistently at times, apparently. All right, let's go ahead and I'll just let everyone know, because I see that we have members of the public joining us tonight, that we're going to have some discussion. The Welcoming Lebanon Ordinance / Fair and Impartial Policing Task Force has been working over the last few months on the different provisions. Our task is to adhere as closely as possible to the intent and to the language of the ordinance that was adopted by the voters in March, but to address a number of legal concerns that were raised by the city attorney mostly regarding specificity, consistency of language between provisions, and things like that. And so that's what we've been working on. The way that we have been running our meetings is that the task force has some discussion items each time, and then we will take a break at a certain point, usually around 7:45, to accept any public testimony that people would like to give, whether it's about the issue we're discussing tonight or whether it's about anything that we've been discussing so far or should be discussing in the future. We are aiming to wrap up during the month of September so that the City Council can review the recommendation that we make. And we are hoping to make a consensus recommendation, and that's what we're working toward. And then the implementation, this ordinance is implemented and will be in effect as of January 1st, 2021. And so that's why there's an urgency to our work so that it can be implemented and effective in January. And so we had talked this evening, we had talked about provision 1 being the next order of business that we would tackle. We had a really good discussion. I felt that it was really good anyway at the last meeting, and that, at least for me, I felt that there was a real aha moment. And so this evening, so Diane Root had offered to carry on her work on provision 1, but which is really provision 1, 2, 3, and even 4. So I know it was like, you didn't realize what you signed up for. So why don't I turn it over to Diane to talk about her work? And I know that the city attorney has also worked on this, but I'd like to, I guess, turn it over to Diane to introduce this topic.
Okay. Yeah, last meeting, I'm sorry, our last meeting was really helpful. And so when Bernie and I talked, we just first established some basic things that we were in some ways newly really clear about. Reminding ourselves this ordinance is not only about immigration and policing, but has that strong anti-discrimination purpose. That provision 1 is primarily about non-discrimination and not about data collection primarily. And that there was no intent in that provision to prevent the city from carrying out its usual activities and functions. So that's kind of where we started in our discussion. So just to say, in order for me to kind of look at my notes, I'm not looking at you all. So if I get a little disjointed, just stop me. So provision 1, as you now have it, as it was sent out, I think is a clear statement regarding non-discrimination in the city of Lebanon. We restored the language about economic or housing status because any concerns about, I think the initial concern was that might prevent using economic situations as a criterion for certain kinds of services or benefits. And so having shifted the structure around a little bit, we felt like we could put that language back in. In provision 1, the last draft referred to U.S. citizenship, and again, we went back to only citizenship because discrimination, as you all know, can be based not only on whether or not a person is documented, but also on whether someone rightly or wrongly identifies them as being kind of a foreigner from somewhere else. Let's see. And then we moved the language about questioning or about collection and retention of information to a separate provision, which is now provision 2. And provision 2 now has the language that bans discriminatory handling of information. Okay, I'm not going to read it to you because hopefully you all have it. Provision 3 now is what was originally provision 2, but without the exclusions. Provision 4 now was originally provision 3, but without the exclusions. And provision 5 now gathers all of that language about exclusionary provisions into one section. Does that make some sort of sense? Okay, so that's how I would, thank you, Casey. That's how I would introduce it and comment on it. And, you know, I don't know if you all want to take a look at it on the screen, if Karen wants to do that, or
Yes,
just
I will
comment.
try and do that right now. So, all right. Sure.
And is Bernie here? Bernie's with us.
Bernie's here, so I think maybe, all right. Am I now sharing my screen?
So Bernie can jump in on stuff I missed or got wrong.
Yeah. Okay. And so I should be, am I now sharing my screen? That is a memo from Bernie.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So Bernie, if you could also go ahead, and now we've got the language in front of us. This is, all right, so I have the language now in front of us of at least of provisions 1 through 4, you can see, and then 5 goes on to the next page. But thank you, Diane, for that introduction, and thank you very much for your work on this. You've done a great job and incorporated a lot of the discussion that we had last time. So Bernie, I'd like to turn it over to you and ask you to also address what you worked on and how you incorporated the discussions from last time into this draft that we now have before us.
Well, I think Diane's done a good job. One thing that I would emphasize about provision 1 that's a change is that it uses the term whether actual or perceived as a modification of all of those categories. So, you know, if the idea being that if somebody is discriminated against because they appear to be of a certain nationality, but they really aren't, it's still discrimination.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Provision 5 is with the 4 paragraphs. The first 3 paragraphs are just like the draft that I presented about a month ago. The new one is D, which talks about economic information being collected, retained, or utilized in the course of administering a program of benefits based on financial need. So such as local general assistance under RSA 165. Having that exception in there allows us to put the housing or economic status back into provision 1 as a non-discrimination category. I think that's about it.
Okay. This looks good. Let's see, why don't I open it up to discussion for the task force? So Diane, if I can just clarify, it sounds like you were able to take the discussion that we had at the last meeting, and then you were able to work with Attorney Waugh, and now you and Attorney Waugh are in consensus about this draft that you have proposed here. Is that reasonable?
Unless there's something I totally missed, but yeah, as far as I can see, that's true.
Okay, great. Okay, members of the task force, what are your thoughts so far on this work? Casey Montas, go ahead.
No, I think that the reworking, the reorganizing and the rewarding works perfect, and I think it accomplishes what we wanted and what we set out to do. So I like it.
Good. What else? All right, that's good. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Bernie. Could I just explain that that now that this is expanded to 5 provisions, what the original provisions 4 and 5 in the version that was passed by the voters would become 6 and 7.
Right.
So we're not. I just want to make it clear that those are not being left out.
Right.
And I know you still have to talk about 6 later tonight, but if you retain any portion of 6, that would become 8.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. So this incorporates some new provisions actually. And so what was formerly provision 6 that we will potentially talk about later tonight would actually be provision 8. So that's very good. Thank you for that clarification. Barry Schuster, I saw your hand up, and then I saw Devin. So Barry and then Devin.
Yeah, a question for Bernie, because he's been careful to warn us about how we don't want to interfere or impede a federal effort. And could you just, with regard to provisions 3 and 4, just reassure me, Bernie, that non-assistance will not run afoul of anything?
Well, again, this is the same opinion I've given since last December, which is that that California case, which is the leading case on this subject, is based on the 10th Amendment, which basically the so-called non-commandeering principle that the federal government cannot commandeer the devotion of local resources to the enforcement of a federal statute or federal law. And to me, provisions 2 and 3 say exactly that. It just says that the resources and personnel of the city of Lebanon are not going to be used to enforce these provisions of federal law.
Thank you.
Great. Go ahead, Devin.
Sure. First, I want to say I'm incredibly grateful to and impressed by the work of Diane Root and Attorney Waugh. This looks like a fabulous and much improved draft. I do still have some minor concerns with it, but I think they're mostly theoretical and probably not anything that could be resolved in any way that comports with the law as it currently stands, as best I understand. And in any case, they're probably already mostly addressed by this. So I think this is a great great revision that seems like it covers everything that I understand to have been in the first three provisions of the original ordinance.
Thank you, Devin. Thank you. Kathy, go ahead, please.
I would agree with Devin. I think this is great work by Diane and Attorney Waugh. I do have one concern, and that is in the original provision 1. Informants was also included in that provision, in terms of we don't want informants to be targeting or profiling anyone based on race and et cetera. Informants are typically used in drug enforcement. I did a quick search and I found a relatively recent case where an informant was used to buy drugs. This was a cooperative case between Lebanon and Hartford police. So I'd be concerned if an informant had a bias toward someone for any reason and somehow, got influenced or became involved in targeting or profiling someone based on race or any other of the categories that we mentioned here. I know that informants are, I've done a little reading on the difficulty with informants in terms of regulating them. And there's some information that the FBI has put out around how police departments can enhance their ability to regulate informants. But I feel that we should at least require our police department to provide training around this ordinance to any informants that they work with. That's not necessarily going to prevent informants to work in ways that are not lawful, but we should at least make the attempt and state that they are also covered by this this ordinance.
Karen?
Great. Yeah, Barry, I see you. Go ahead.
To follow up on that, Kathy, what if in the definitions that we'll be getting to in the section on agent, there was something in there that would be a global catch then, I think.
Yeah, that was something that I had thought about, and actually was something that Kara Kelly had mentioned, that that informants could be considered agents. So anyway, that seems to be a possibility.
I think from the way that definition of agent is written, an informant could be, and probably is likely, an agent. Perhaps using the word informant in there only makes that absolutely clear. Because it could be paid or volunteer or expecting some benefit of treatment, whatever it is. And so it could certainly fit in there.
Yeah, and my question was going to be, if I agree with you, to make it clear is important. We could hypothesize that informants are agents, but I think it's best to make that clear in the definitions. Yeah.
That's great. I see Casey has his hand raised as well.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment in regards to informants. It is almost impossible to try and sort of impart any kind of standardized knowledge for them in terms of training, for the simple reason that sometimes one police investigator or detective or even a patrol person will have an informant, and there is only that one-on-one relationship. So informants ultimately are not considered agents as working on behalf of the city or the police department. Uh, I think what we should be concentrating is to make sure that the agents who are employees, and in this case will be the police, will vet the information that they get from informant to make sure that they are not acting unbiased or that they do not act on information that might be biased in whichever way. Because otherwise, the control gate, I think the door to the gate is at the police. Beyond that, it's almost impossible to track. And again, these agents sometimes happen. These informants sometimes happen by chance, unplanned. They come, they go, they disappear, they come back, or they just sort of happen on the moment. So it's kind of impossible to track, control, or date.
That's a really interesting point. And yeah, so it sounds like this discussion is one to consider a little more under definitions, I think. So with regard to these provisions, are we feeling satisfied, comfortable with the language that we can kind of say that this is in a final form and go ahead and put this, say that we're ready for these particular provisions? I'm going to say this is the proposed provisions 1 through 5, and say that we're satisfied with these. We consider consensus recommendation to the city council. Barry Schuster?
I would put it this way, that for today, my straw poll is I vote for these, but
Okay.
I'd like to see the finished product, which may bounce back and forth a little bit, you know, if we want to tweak these somewhat, but I would definitely put these in our working draft as we go forward, and then add on the end with the other provisions, and then see how it all looks.
Okay, I like that idea. So if we're just taking sort of straw poll for now, if we can go around and just say straw poll for now, understanding that there's more work to do on the other provisions. How are you feeling about these ones at this particular time? Straw poll, you know, yes, no. Anyone else? Barry says yes for now. Casey, I see your
Yes.
thumbs up. You say yes for now. Diane, I see your thumbs up. You're saying yes for now. Kathy, Devin. Kathy, I see your head nodding. Is that a yes for now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Devin, what are your thoughts? Devin, I see your head nodding. All right, I'm going to nod my head as well. And so I think this is very good. So why don't we go to the topic? We were just talking about definitions. Why don't we go to that topic next? And I know that Devin, you worked on this, and I am going to try and do my technology. Did I just stop screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, so that's good. All I need is for someone to tell me what I'm doing. Okay. And I need for my internet to work at the same time. I think that's too much to ask, actually.
Yeah.
Only one thing at a time, but all right. And definitions. I have, okay. I have Attorney Wah's memo. Is that a good thing for me to bring up, Devin? What would be the best document for me to bring up for you, Devin?
I would say there was an additional document, definitions.pdf, that was sent yesterday at 11:03 a.m. under the subject Welcoming Lebanon Ordinance Definitions. I think that would probably, yes, the one that you have right there would be great.
Is that the city manager taking over?
Well, I hate to admit, but yes. I've got 4 screens. It's easier for me to do it. That way you're not tying up your screen.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, City Manager.
So I'll just mention briefly that I've gone to Attorney Waugh with a draft largely comprised of the definitions that had been used in the Chicago and Hartford ordinances, revised slightly to fit what we want and also to be more grammatically correct. And he helped to provide more effective language, to provide better clarifying language, to question those that may not be necessarily relevant or important, and for the most part provided, I would say, generally agreeable changes, adding City of Lebanon and adding charter and state law, defining an administrative or federal agency being charged with the enforcement of civil immigration laws. And I think more importantly and perhaps controversially, we've discussed the term agent, which I think was the primary reason for looking more closely at definitions. This definition is one that I think we both agree with as giving the ordinance some sort of force that it's not necessarily going to fall flat on anyone who figures out a way to break through a loophole. But at the same point, it seems like something that wouldn't infringe on an individual's free speech rights. It applies particularly when an individual's ability to uphold their duties could be hindered by their attempted free speech. That I guess I'm not saying that clearly, but their free speech is not protected if it could hinder their ability to perform their job functions. And so this seems to be a largely inclusive definition of agent that Attorney Waugh has agreed would be better than the originally proposed definition, and that would still cover what we're concerned about. I would be curious to hear, maybe not necessarily this evening, but in the next few weeks, if Attorney Waugh has an opinion on whether we can include informants in the definition of agent. I think that would be a good addition. But other than that, I offer this document of definitions for consideration.
Could I look, go down a little ways to see what's at the bottom? Oh, okay. He totally. Okay.
All right, so Attorney Waugh, would you be able to talk about this as well? I know that you have sent us an email as well.
Well, you may have seen in the correspondence that Devin and I had an exchange about whether we needed to define a U.S. or T visa, and I see that he's chosen not to. This is a term that is used in provision. What's now provision 6 will become 8. And my suggestion, instead of trying to define those things where you would have to basically have some cross references to federal statutes, is that we don't need it. It's not something. It appears in a sentence which says, for purposes of aiding an individual who may qualify for a U.S. or T visa, information may be shared if such disclosure has been authorized in writing by the individual to whom the information pertains. And, I just don't think that term needs to be defined. The discussion of informants, I have two, excuse me if my voice is failing again. I have two concerns from a legal perspective. I think, for one thing, I mean, there's no standard informer. If you're just talking about somebody who's standing on the corner and the police officer comes by and the person on the corner says, I think they went that way or something like that, that's an informer, I guess. But the question is, what the concern is this ordinance going to prohibit the police from using information that they otherwise might have access to? So that's one concern. The other concern is, if it really is the case that the police department is not supposed to be under this ordinance using those people if they are acting in a discriminatory way, or if they are arguably acting in a discriminatory way, the question is, does that mean that that perhaps valuable evidence is going to be excluded from a trial because it was illegally sought? I mean, that's of course a huge issue in criminal law, is the exclusionary rule, and I just don't want to leave that argument out there for somebody to claim that the intent of this ordinance was to exclude certain evidence. My own feeling about this is that the definition of agent is already sufficient. It says any person employed by or acting on behalf of an agency. And in fact, in paragraph 1, or provision 1 of the ordinance, it includes volunteers. So the kind of informant that, excuse me, the kind of informant that Kathleen was talking about, who's basically used on a regular basis, that person's already covered. That's either that's an agent or a volunteer, one or the other. So I guess I question whether that's necessary.
Okay.
Okay, this is some interesting. We are really getting into the weeds. I just was trying to adjust the screen of what we're looking at. So why don't we take up firstly this issue of the T, whatever it is, visa. Devin, do you have thoughts? Did you have thoughts on that? It sounds like city attorney is saying that he thinks it's not necessary to include, but you've included it. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm happy to agree with the attorney's opinion. I think perhaps in light of an earlier discussion we had where we were getting particular about some of the language that was used in earlier provisions, I was concerned about whether or not the particular phrase U.S. or T visa might be misinterpreted or questioned. I think somebody else might have had the same concern and mentioned it to me. And so that was not an inclusion in either the Chicago or Hartford ordinance, despite it being listed in both of them. And if the attorney believes that this is not a line that can be misinterpreted to mean something other than the intent, I don't see a reason to define it either. That was perhaps an excess of caution on my part in forming the initial list of definitions that I'm happy to do away with, as the attorney says, if it's not necessary.
All right, Bernie, does that satisfy your concern with regard to that particular issue?
Karen, can you let that other person in? It's two people, or one or two people trying to get in. I don't have access because my screen's up. Can you make sure they get allowed in?
I will do that.
Thank you.
Yes, Carol is being let in right now. Okay, welcome Carol to the meeting. All right, Bernie, does that address the removing the reference to the T visas? Does that address your issue?
I think if the definition is removed, that would do it. If members of the committee think, or the task force think that that term shouldn't be used unless it's defined, then I think I had a suggestion that I ran by Devin for how to reword that sentence.
Where is it? I'm sorry, but it's not on the page that's being shown. So can it be, is it just somewhere else on the page that maybe the city manager needs to show?
Let me pull up another. I'll pull up the original. Hold on 1 second here. Let me pull up the original.
Definitions that were offered by Devin?
Well, no, the original. Hold on a second here. Just give me 1 second.
It's 6 sub 6.
Yeah. There we go, right there.
Let's see.
You folks can see that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. See this. Okay, so we see number 6. For the purpose of aiding an individual who may qualify for a U, S, or T visa. Information may be shared if such disclosure has been authorized in writing by the individual to whom such information pertains. And so the issue that we're addressing right now is that Devin had proposed to define T visa, and Bernie is suggesting that we don't need to define these terms. Is that correct?
I didn't see that definition in Devin's final proposal, so I may be wrong.
Yeah, I had removed that from the proposal that I sent for distribution to the task force. I think the question right now is whether there is anyone who disagrees with the argument. If there is anyone who feels that they need to be defined despite the current, what appears like consensus, that they're clear enough and shouldn't pose any problems or endanger the people to whom this ordinance pertains by standing as they are here.
Okay, so they are capitalized. These are capitalized specific titles. And so the idea is that we don't have to reference them because they actually exist as specific definitions. They've already been defined by presumably federal immigration law. Okay. All right. So task force members, are we satisfied with not having a definition for US or T visas in our specific municipal ordinance? Are there any thoughts on that particular issue?
Casey here.
Yes, Casey.
So I just want to say that I think that the type of visa or the transaction at this point is kind of irrelevant, because the waiting point here is the fact that the person has given written authorization to release that information. So the purpose, I think, is irrelevant at this point once there is written authorization from the affected individual.
Exactly.
Okay. Good. All right. Anyone object to this? No, I'm not seeing any objections. Okay, good. It sounds like we can move on from that. So then I think our issue now that we need to address is the question of informants. Is that Is that fair to say? Okay. And it sounds to me like there's kind of different types of informants. It sounds like there are some informants who are sort of like fleeting. And then there are some informants who are maybe more like regular people that are working on a voluntary or some sort of basis, but they're more like regular in their informancy. And I guess, is that something, so it was Kathleen who brought this up, and it sounded like the attorney, like Bernie was already thinking about ways of addressing this. How do we deal with the issue of informants? And I guess the truth is, I'll just state for the record that I think if an informant is using discrimination in the way that they are soliciting, obtaining, sharing information with the city, then I think that should be thrown out. I don't think that should be valid for some kind of a conviction. If someone, the point that we're talking about is that we don't want anyone to be able to use discrimination in the city of Lebanon, and that's how it is. So I think that's a reasonable thing. If it's like, what do they call that? It's like poisoned fruits or something. So, all right.
The fruit of a poisonous tree.
All right, the fruit of the poisonous tree. So thanks, Casey.
Poisonous.
All right. Any other? So that's my thoughts. Who else has thoughts on this?
Yeah.
Casey, go ahead.
So I will just say that in cases like that, I think that supervisors and ultimately the district attorney is the one, or the county attorney is the one to review the information and see if that could be utilized for a prosecution. But I want to go back to the whole thing of informant and acting on behalf of the city or the police department, even if it is a volunteer situation. So I want to go back to the example of the person utilized to buy drugs illegally. That's completely different than if I volunteer to help the city do traffic control, for example. I am clearly there as a volunteer acting as an agent of the city. I don't think in this illegal drug buy, the buyer, who was an informant, was there telling the person that he's buying from that he was buying on behalf of the city of Lebanon. So this idea of acting on behalf is kind of gray in that area, which is completely different, again, from a volunteer that might be, let's say, doing traffic control or crowd control at an event. So again, it's kind of difficult to say when a person is publicly acting as an agent, whether it's volunteer or for pay, in situations like that.
Okay, Kathy.
So I've done just a little reading on this, but for the most part, it's been around confidential informants. And there was some discussion through legal resources, the FBI, for instance. They talk about how informants need to be trained. There needs to be control over what informants do. So I would, my thought is that if the police department's going to use informants, and that's a questionable practice in itself, that that there should be control over, how they treat citizens of the city and who are in the city. So, I mean, there is training around it. There is a recognition that the police department has a role in making sure that there are not discriminatory practices. So what you're saying, Casey, is that, and you're saying that the police department is ultimately responsible. I agree with that. But it starts with training, I believe, and trying to make sure that that those informants follow this ordinance.
May I relate a little anecdote of an informant? Once upon a time, I was a police officer, and we had a detective working on the case, and he was coming to us to our meeting saying that he had this informant that was giving him information, and we were also suspicious of the informant, and because of the information that was being provided, and so it came out that this informant was a mental health patient that was coming onto the grounds for treatment. And that so through the vetting of the process of the information, it came out that this was not a reliable informant. So I think that the police department, I'm pretty sure they do, or they should have vetting processes for making sure that the information that is provided is useful and therefore devoid of any kind of discrimination. But again, that I think that's a police process. I don't know that we will necessarily be able to control that within the parameters of the ordinance.
Yeah, I think this. Or go ahead, Devin. Wait.
Oh, sorry. I can wait for you.
No. Go ahead.
Okay. My comment, partially in the interest of time and knowing we have limited time this evening and limited time in total. I understand that we have a couple ideas of informants, one being, as Attorney Waugh invoked, the individual standing on the street corner saying he went that way, who very clearly can't, I assume, can't be covered by this ordinance, and the paid informant or volunteer informant trained by the city who it sounds like would be covered by the agent clauses acting on behalf of an agency. I wonder if it would behoove us if Kathy would be interested in us visiting this topic with Attorney Kira Kelly, seeing if she can, from our end, conceive of any gray area in between and any way that might be resolved. And if we're able to do that quickly enough that we can get back to it at our next meeting with a solution that doesn't seem to infringe on the rights of people who clearly aren't under the discipline of the city. I wonder if that might be a more effective resolution than trying to discuss it right now in our last 30 minutes, less whatever time we have for public comment.
All right, Devin, I think that sounds like a good idea. Why don't I ask Kathy to, if you're willing, Kathy, to maybe follow up with Attorney Waugh on this between now and our next meeting, and let's see if we can address this issue between now and then. So since it is, and thank you, Devin, for reminding me, since it is well into our meeting, why don't we go ahead and open up to the public for comments and see if members of the public have anything to say or add to our discussion tonight. You can talk about anything we're talking about tonight or anything in general. This is just a time for the public to weigh in. If you would like to speak, you just have to unmute yourself and start speaking. We sort of have an honor code here that we won't be offended if multiple people start speaking at once. We just take turns. Just have to identify yourself. And if you're on the phone, you just have to press *6 to unmute yourself. So let's turn it over to the public. Is there any member of the public who would wish to speak tonight? And I am seeing that we do have some members of the public who are here. I see Amelia. Hi, Amelia. I see Carol Rougeby. I see Meg. I see Sarah Raitt, and I see Susan. So welcome to all of you. If you would like to weigh in, this is your chance tonight. Otherwise, we will just consider that you approve of everything that we're saying. Okay, let's see. In the chat, Susan says, thanks, I have nothing tonight. All right, thanks a lot, Susan. I appreciate that. It's hard to know sometimes, you know, when you're in a public body like this. I see this on the city council sometimes that, you know, we don't always get feedback from people. And so sometimes you have to take the absence of negative feedback to imply consent. But of course, consent is actually something that's really more of an affirmative process. We all know that. And so we would like to know if people have objections. That's helpful. Okay. Well, I think I have pontificated enough. So let's come back to the task force. So there we go. All right, members of the task force. So it sounds like so far we have dealt with provisions 1 through new number 5. We have a straw poll on that. We have on, with regard to the definitions, it sounds like we have actually a fair amount of consensus, but we're still going to address this question of informants and agency. I guess it is now time to take up provision 6, which is now the new provision 8. Okay, and so let's take up provision 6. City Manager Mulholland, are you able to pull up I think the memo from Attorney Waugh had the proposed language that we had left off with, as well as his opinion. Are you able to pull that up and share it?
I'm going to have to find out what meeting that was last.
Oh, I think,
I
wait.
didn't have any proposed language.
Yeah, I thought we went for Barry to produce a new doc.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and Barry, did you haven't produced a new document yet?
No, I have not. Not a new one, no.
Oh, I meant Bernie. No, so Barry. Okay, then good. Then actually, maybe this is an opportunity for us to have an early meeting. So Barry, do you want to just talk to us about how you see provision 6 or the new provision 8 sort of coming about? And I think that will be the topic for our next meeting, really?
Well, I think at one of the prior meetings, I was requested to speak to Bernie. We had that conversation, and I'm trying to recall what I said, so I say the same thing again. But I do think that Bernie's July 17 memo had a paragraph, but I think the issue that he and I focused on was not announcing that there's going to be an immigration roadblock at Mechanic Street and Slayton Hill, but a general statement that on May 5th, there will be an immigration review in the city or something like that. So it would be more general. And I think that's one of the comments that we shared. And I'll let Bernie jump in if that helps him recall our conversation. I think that's what I recall, that making a general statement would be less problematic than a specific location.
That's great. And I'll just recognize that Sue Prentice has joined us. Thank you so much, Sue. We know you were at a different obligation, and so we're glad that you were able to join us. Just to catch you up to speed, we were able to come to consensus, I think, on provisions, on the new provisions 1 through 5. We just had we had a straw poll that everyone seems to be fairly in agreement on that. We had some good discussion about definitions, and Kathy is going to work on particularly the issue of informants and who exactly are agents for the city. She's going to work on that for the next meeting. And we were just picking up the topic of provision 6, which is actually now going to be the new provision 8, since we've added some things. So provision 8. So Barry was just saying that he had a conversation with Bernie on this, and this is going to be the topic that we will start with at our next meeting. So, so Bernie, go ahead, please.
Well, I just, sorry, Madam Chair, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Not at all.
I just wanted to clarify that in the discussion I had with Attorney Schuster, that I did not agree that any version of Provision 6 that I could give a positive legal opinion about. In other words, the limiting of Provision 6 to a general announcement about there may be some traffic somewhere in the city, some traffic problems caused by a checkpoint. I think that reduces the risk. But again, you know, we've talked about this before. My job in representing municipalities is not to give a green light unless I have a reason to think that something is lawful. In this case, there's no law on this much at all. But my hunch is that that Provision 6, even as reduced as Attorney Schuster proposes, would be found to be an interference with federal law enforcement. And so, you know, in my general role as a municipal attorney, I give conservative legal opinions, and therefore I still do not recommend it. And I just wanted to make that clear.
Karen?
Okay, let's see, Sue and then Barry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barry. I come in late and I jumped
Go
in
ahead.
line. Sorry about that. So Bernie, and I know I'm coming in late, but I did read the legal opinion, and one of the things that struck me, I know, Karen, I just used again, is that you refer to it almost as like 50-50, like maybe yes, maybe no, that in terms of this being problematic. Did I?
That's right. And you know, I think I said at one point, my practice when I'm asked about the legality of something is that I don't recommend that it be done by a municipality, which is going to risk the possibility of spending taxpayer money defending it, unless I think that the chances of success are at least 70-75%. That's the gist of it.
So you have a 20% margin there. I'm not laughing at you. I'm sorry.
Well, of course, those percentages don't mean really anything. It's just a measure of, it's an offhand measure of how confident I am of prevailing.
Yeah. When somebody says 50-50 though, as I read there, it just, and it again just strikes me that there's, you know, it's a half and half. And I think we should stay with the true intent of what was proposed with the modifications that, you know, we've already agreed upon. I think that brings us a higher level of protection. That's my opinion. And I know, again, I'm late to the game. We'll spend more time on it at the next meeting, which I won't be missing or even part of it. But Barry, Karen, I'm sorry. I'm going to turn the floor over to Barry Schuster.
Sure.
Well,
Some cold water. Yeah.
and Attorney Wall, I'm sitting here as Barry, the non-lawyer, but just a citizen. And I agree with Sue that there is an intent here that's really important. Again, my personal experience in having been stopped at one of these checkpoints was very inconvenient. And there are times when we measure the ideology of a cause, and I have maybe greater confidence in your legal skills than you do. So I think it's really important to maybe push the envelope a little bit on this. And I think I'm stepping back when I say just a general announcement. At least that's my very personal position. I'm willing to step back from saying Mechanic and Slayton Hill, but I think it's all right if there were a notice that there will be a checkpoint in the city, or in the Upper Valley, something like that. And again, I think that's, again, a very personal opinion, but through experience.
Casey.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. My issue with those checkpoints is that they leave our residents without any recourse or protection. And I cannot but feel that this has been done with the intention of intimidating our residents. And I say this because I very vividly recall the day that that checkpoint happened. It was the day that international students were moving up to the Upper Valley. And again, so I think we have an obligation to take a stand in the same manner for the protection and for providing our residents recourse and protection that say that they can just come over here and intimidate us. Sorry, how can I feel about that?
Kathy.
I just want to mention that the ACLU is suing Border Patrol over their checkpoints. I don't have the full story. Phil Bush found an article related to this, and I think it has to do with they were looking for other criminal activity. So I'm not sure of the whole story, but I appreciate everyone's support of the intent of Provision 6.
Diane.
Yeah, I just want to add my add my support to that. I think so often we have people who may not have documentation, but we are dependent on them for various services in our community. We benefit from their presence. We benefit from their work. It just seems to me like morally the least we can do is to extend to them the opportunity to know what their rights are and to be prepared. So I just to add my support to the intent.
I agree. And I think honestly, it's very upsetting to think that we would have been targeted on a day that international students were coming. It's just very upsetting.
Yep.
Because I think that whether people decide to stay here permanently or whether they are here, or whether they are passing through, they are entitled to be treated with equality and dignity.
Yeah.
And we owe the same extension of rights to the people who are temporarily here as to the people who are permanently here. And so that is just really shocking and it's very upsetting. So that's how I feel about it. Okay, I see that Carol has found the chat. She said, sorry, I just found the chat. Thanks, I have no comments. Thank you for all the good work on the definitions. Thank you, Carol, for that comment. And I see Amelia Serene says, Provision 6 intends to help us decline to be made agents of the CBD, which I'm thinking is the Border Patrol. This fits right into anti-commandeering. Did I get that right? CBD. So thank you for your comment, Amelia. I appreciate that. It sounds like at our next meeting, we are going to begin with Provision 6. We will also resume the discussion of definitions. And maybe we will be getting very close to preparing a consensus draft of recommendations for the City Council.
Madam Chair, could I just ask about, I think Kathleen was going to work on the enforcement thing.
Yes.
And I would just suggest, given the short amount of time before you guys are supposed to be done, if you could get me a draft or something for comments, that might speed it along a little bit.
I'm wondering so I've been working on something. I'm wondering if it would save time if I could just have a conversation with you so that I know what direction I should follow.
I could do that. We could do that sometime this week. Let's just arrange a time by email.
Okay, great.
Okay.
And Bernie, are there any other issues that are left unresolved from your perspective?
Well, the city manager just pointed out to me a an issue that I didn't realize was an issue, but it also involves paragraph 6 of what's now provision 5 about the sharing of information. And if I understand him correctly, there's a certain amount of information that is put into the system, and because it's in the system, it's already being shared. Am I getting that right?
No, actually, it's more like if you run any person's name in the system, do a motor vehicle records check, and there's a want or an interest by a federal agency, they automatically can grab that. So obviously, we're not actively sending information to immigration. However, by the mere fact that we do a search on the online system, it can be picked up by other agencies. So that you just have to understand that, and that. So I guess that would be sharing the information. And if we're not allowed to do that, obviously we wouldn't be able to use the CGIS system at all, which would be really problematic.
Maybe
if everybody understands what I'm saying. I know Casey does, but the rest of you know. Okay. I think. Yeah. So I run your name, you get stopped. A police officer runs your name, and that automatically goes into a system. If they have a list of people, I don't know how whatever they do at immigration, but they have a list of people they're interested in, or maybe have gone past the period of time they're supposed to be in the country, and by running that license, that name, it's going to pop up, and then they're going to know that we have had some sort of contact or some sort of interest in that person. So therefore, we're sharing information. So you just got to. That's a problem. You just have to think about that. I think what you meant to say is actively sharing information, like contacting CBP and say, "Hey, we've got John Smith here," and that I think that's what you really are intending. But the devil's in the details, of course, when we have to turn around and enforce this.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing that up to the city manager. Casey, go ahead.
No, but I just want to say that again, I don't think that by using that, we will be sharing. They are sort of fishing, but I also trust that our record keeping on our immigration, as they have demonstrated, they are not very up to date. Or at least I'm laughing, but this is a very serious matter because we know that they have kids that they took out of detention centers, and now they have no idea where they are at. So it's a criticism and a reality.
Well, that is, yeah. It's all very sad, actually, really. Okay.
Well, Bernie, to look at some of that language then, just so we avoid that problem. I think that you're talking about actively sharing it, not.
Yeah, I mean, I just became aware of this issue tonight, so maybe the city manager and I can discuss a little bit, and I can come up with a suggestion, and you all can come up with a suggestion as well.
I think that sounds like a good idea because it sounds like we're getting really close to the end here. So I think our next meeting is going to be provision 6. Well, formerly provision 6, now provision 8. It's going to be definitions, and we'll address this particular issue as well. And we still will have one more meeting in September if necessary to actually have a final form and have a final hearing and a final, a vote on a final, hopefully consensus recommendation. So that would be my I guess my recommendation tonight is that we conclude now. We plan that we have 2 more meetings. The next meeting will be hopefully addressing all the outstanding issues, and the final meeting will be voting on a final recommendation to the city council. Yeah, Barry.
Could we get in one document the definitions, provisions 1 through 5 from tonight, and then paragraphs 4, which is now 6, the 4, 5, and 6, which are now 6, 7, and 8. Just get them in one document. I'm happy with the provisions 1 through 5, but seeing the rest of them all in one document with definitions would be great just to work with, so it would help me.
Sure, I think that sounds like a great idea. We'll include that in the next packet.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Well, so
Diane, go ahead.
Oh, it sort of goes along with what Barry was saying, which is just, I've kind of lost track in all the reshuffling of things. Have we covered everything? I mean, have we at least looked at all the different provisions we needed to have looked at? like 6 and 7. I've lost track of what will be 6 and 7. I've kind of lost track of what they even are. So you don't have to tell me. I just want to make sure that we're not skipping over anything.
Hopefully, when we see them all in one document, we'll know if we've done them or not. But you're right. Yeah, good, Diane.
Yes, and those were the ones, Diane, those were the ones that the task force had kind of identified that there wasn't particularly much to work on.
Yeah.
So, I think those are good, but it's true. We'll put them together and then we'll be able to really make sure we're comfortable with everything. Who else? Devin, did you have your hand up? No?
No.
Okay. All right, Casey.
I think that Kathleen had her hand up before.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you, Kat.
Well, I was just going to say what you said, that we really didn't have, there were no concerns about those provisions. So that's why we haven't been addressing them.
Sue.
So, you know, am I mute? No, I'm off mute. I'm like a process hound. So you think 2 more meetings?
Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
And then we'll present to the city council? Is that the plan? So, okay, so I just wanted to make the suggestion. I'm always thinking about like what the end is and then how to get there. And we're getting there. So when we come to that, I think that not you and I, but members of the task force, kind of sort of, Devin, like what we did with arts and culture, that they present overall to the council. You know, because we're part of the team, but I really think that that your voices are what I think you all need to be, leading the discussion when it comes to the council. We'll support you, but that it's just, I think about how effective that is when the public is at the table making the presentation, especially on something like this, a project that the members of the public have been engaged in and working together as part of this committee. So I just wanted to put that out there now. It's my habit, Karen, I like go way out, but if we're 2 out, we should start thinking about that, as well as how this is going to be rolled out to the council and who's going to, and a couple of you hopefully that will be prepared to do it.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think what we're hopefully looking at is to present this to the council at the first council meeting of October.
Mm-hmm. And
I think it would be ideal if all members of the task force could be present and participating. And of course, when making a presentation, it's sometimes good if it's 1 or 2 people who are the lead presenters. But I think it would be nice if we do come to a consensus, and even if we don't, honestly, for everyone who's been participating in this, if we can all be there at that meeting, I think that would be helpful. That way, if anyone has questions, everyone will be there. So I think that's a good point, Sue.
I'm not looking to exclude anyone. I'm just saying, I think that versus you and I, it should be other members of the task force. And the nice thing about Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is we're using tonight is that we don't all have to squish around a table to have this conversation. Okay, so it's good. Thank you.
Great.
So, Councilor Hill,
Yeah.
Who's the doer of putting the document together?
I mean, I was kind of thinking that maybe Bernie Wall would do that.
Well, no offense to Bernie Wall, but I don't want to pay him a couple $100 an hour to put that together. We already get paid to do that kind of stuff.
So then maybe City Manager Mulholland.
Yes.
I don't know. I see a hand up.
All right. I see Barry Schuster with his hand up, Barry.
If all of the documents were sent to me in a text format, then I can certainly assemble them with no credit for errors, but I'll do the best I can.
Well, they have to be codified too. That's part of the charge. So, and there's a specific numbering and there's a process for that. So that's why I'm suggesting, you're already paying me. I can put it together. I'm not going to change the words you have in there, but that's a task that's also on you that you have to get done.
I mean, I'll do it, but I'm volunteering if that helps.
And I'm volunteering to back Barry up and work with you on this.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll team up.
She'll make sure I do it right.
All right.
I think
And then Sean can look over what you guys did and make sure it has all the right numbers and everything.
Great, great, thank you.
Does that sound like a good way to go, Sean?
Yeah, if they know how to codify them and do that in accordance with the city's system, I guess so.
No, I'm saying you can do that part.
We'll give you the text and then you can make it Dewey Decimal System.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
You went for further comment. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
All right.
I still,
So you need Word docs, obviously, so you can cut and paste. That's what you're
Nope.
asking.
Correct.
All right. We can do that.
no offense, Sean, but I forgot because I came in late that you were here. So when you started speaking, it was like the Wizard of Oz. I'm like, where's that voice coming
The
from?
man behind the curtain.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what it felt
And
like.
you've got Toto.
I know.
He's here somewhere. Yeah, there he is.
She's tired, and when she hears Sean's voice, she thinks that meetings are over. So she comes running into the room.
All
Karen,
right.
getting goofy. I think it's time,
Yeah, Diane, you got it. All
I
right.
second that motion.
All right. Motion to adjourn by Diane, seconded by Schuster. And let's do a roll call vote. Barry Schuster,
Yes.
Casey Montas,
Yes.
Diane Root,
Yes.
Sue Prentice,
Yes.
Kathy Beckett,
Yes.
Devin Wilkie,
Yes.
Aaron Leo Hill votes yes. Thank you very much, everyone. We will
Thank
see
you
you
all.
in 2 weeks.
Yay. Good to see you.
Good night.
What
Good night.
Right.
do you think? Can you say good night? Good night. Good night. Bye-bye. She loves coming to the meetings. All right. Let's see. How did Casey Montas get in the lobby? All right.